tremendous heist, the biggest in history up till that time. I just am emphasizing the level of sophistication of guys in that life. I knew Henry Hill, I knew Paulie Vario, I knew Jimmy Burke. They got over $5 million in cash and jewelry at the time. Criminals have, good minds when it comes to things like that. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is good on this end. Praise God for that. We always give God all the praise, honor, and glory. At least I do. And please subscribe. We appreciate everything that you do. Press that little button on the side too. You'll get alerts when things are coming up. And we appreciate it. It encourages us to continue to give you the best possible content that we can. And we so appreciate the feedback that we get and know that you're enjoying it. And it means a lot to us. So thanks. Subscribe. Press that little button right now. Today, we're going to do the Lufthansa heist, something that I'm pretty intimately familiar with, only because it was my era. It was around 1978. I had already been a maid guy for about 3 years at that point. I knew Henry Hill, I knew Paulie Vario, I knew Jimmy Burke, and word was on the street this was a huge heist, the Lufthansa heist. As a matter of fact, up till that time, it was the biggest heist in the history of the United States. They got over $5 million in cash and jewelry at the time. And even though it was kept pretty close to the vest, Jimmy kept it pretty close to the vest, word was out on the street. I mean, obviously it was all over the news, and we know who did it. And I had a little inside information, not really from Jimmy, because he was very tight-lipped about this, not really from Paulie either. But Henry Hill, he had a little bit of a drinking problem. I knew Henry fairly well. We had bounced around a couple of times in different places. And he said a few things that led me to believe that he was on the inside of this whole heist. And Henry and I had known each other before that. He had given me a couple of tips on that whole Boston College scandal when he had a couple of the players working with him. And I made a couple of dollars, put a few bets down myself. So I liked Henry at the time. He was a problem guy, but I liked him at that time. Let me kind of set this up for you. I think what happened, there was an inside guy working at Lufthansa. And by the way, JFK was a target. We had pulled a lot of heists. When I say we, the families, not my crew in particular, but a lot of the families. And Jimmy, I believe, worked at JFK pretty well. They did a couple of hijacks of trucks. I think you saw that in the movie Goodfellas. As a matter of fact, this was all in the movie Goodfellas. They didn't actually show the heist. They showed the planning before a little bit. And then, if you remember the shower scene when Henry Hill got the call that the heist went off, or he heard it and something, he screamed in the shower. He was happy. But so they did talk about it, obviously, there. And they showed the aftermath, what I'll get into. But this guy, one of the insiders, I believe, told somebody about it, another guy, and that guy happened to owe a big debt to a bookmaker. I think it was like 20 grand. And the bookmaker went to Henry Hill and told him about this Lufthansa deal. That money was coming in from Europe, and sometimes it wasn't immediately shipped out to the bank. Sometimes it stayed there overnight. So there was some tremendous planning and research done with this. Jimmy was the mastermind, no question about it. He's dead now, I can talk about it. And he chose 6 guys that he was going to appoint to go in and actually do the actual heist. And it was planned, I think, at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was just before Christmas, I think mid-December in 1978 when this happened. And 6 guys in ski masks in a van went to the cargo area of Lufthansa, and they went in, loaded guns, and it was heavily staffed at that time. They got all the people that were working there. They tied them up. They had to bypass the alarms. They knew what the system was because they had inside information. They had to bring up somebody to actually open up the safe where the money was kept. I think there was 15 boxes of money, several pounds each. That's $5 million in cash and jewelry. It's pretty heavy. So as you can see, there was a very high level of sophistication involved in the Lufthansa heist. Jimmy Burke was no fool. This was carefully planned out to the T. They robbed over $5 million. It was the biggest heist at that time in history. And they did it in less than an hour and a half, I think. So don't ever sell criminals short. They're very, very sophisticated. And if there's something they can figure out how to scam, trust me, they'll do it. How do I know this? Spent 20 years on the street. I was a criminal myself. I actually scammed the government out of hundreds of millions of dollars. It was a very sophisticated scheme that we put together. You know, I spent 8 years in prison with a lot of criminals out there, and some of the things that they came up with, I don't even know how they figure these things out. You know, today, you know what the toughest crime, the biggest crime is? Identity theft. I think something like 1 out of 4 Americans have already reported identity theft. I've had my identity stolen. Believe that? I've had my credit cards compromised a couple of times, took losses out of the bank that I had to make up. It's unbelievable. And you know, they're not out there targeting businesses like I did. I targeted the federal government. Lufthansa was obviously a business. They're targeting individuals like you and me. That's who they're going after. I went on the dark web as part of another YouTube that I did. I couldn't believe what I saw on there. It's like the Mafia operating. It's so sophisticated. It's unbelievable. You need to protect yourself from this. I'm telling you. I use a company called IdentityIQ. They're terrific. They monitor everything that I'm doing because I don't want to have to worry about it. I'm not sophisticated online. I don't know anything about identity theft, honestly, and I don't want to be a victim of it again. IdentityIQ, they're terrific. They even have insurance. They can protect you possibly from some losses that you might take. They're really good. I suggest that you do it because you know what? Your identity has probably been stolen already. The criminals just haven't used it yet, but they probably got it. You know, whether it came on your phone or on your computer, they probably have it already. That's how sophisticated these people are. So I'm suggesting IdentityIQ.com/Franzese or click on the link below and get some peace of mind. So now they pull off the heist, and great, kept quiet. Word started to get out a little bit on the street. We knew it happened. Everybody suspected it was an inside job and that our guys were involved in it. And you know the crazy thing? Nobody, one person was indicted on this. Only one person. They've never really solved the crime. They heard stuff about it afterwards, and Henry talked about it, but nobody ever got indicted. You know, when Henry became an informant, you know, against Jimmy Burke and Paulie Vario, he informed on them for different things, not for the Lufthansa heist. He couldn't even put his finger on that. He couldn't prove it. That's how well planned it was. Jimmy didn't even let Henry know the inside information because if Henry knew it, he would have fingered and certainly informed on Jimmy and Paulie for that also. And Paulie wasn't directly involved, but Jimmy answered to Paulie Vario, and that's how Paulie knew about it. But you know the aftermath. You watched it in Goodfellas. Jimmy got very paranoid about this. You know, Stax, that was a true scene when Tommy DeSimone, Joe Pesci walked in and he killed Stax because Stax was the guy that drove the van. True story, black guy. He drove the van and he was supposed to get rid of the van. He was actually supposed to drive it to a junkyard that John Gotti owned, and it was supposed to be crushed. But what happened, Stax, for some reason, I don't know if he was drinking a little bit, he went over to his girlfriend's house, he parked the van in front of a fire hydrant and went in to spend the night with his girl, and I think a day or two later, the cops saw the van and they confiscated it. They got fingerprints from the van of some of the guys that allegedly went in and did the robbery. And as a result of that, Jimmy ordered Stax to get killed. Tommy DeSimone did pull the trigger on that. You saw the scene when they went into his apartment and when they went to Stax's apartment and they killed him there. On top of that, about 5 or 6 more guys got murdered. And again, Jimmy, you know, allegedly gave the order. Paulie Vario okayed it because guys were getting loose-lipped about that, you know. And again, it brings me back to what my father told me. He said, man, if something happens, you and I commit a crime together, son, 1 minute after that crime, if you bring it up to me, I'm going to say, what are you talking about? There's no reason to talk about it. Well, there was word out on the street, and guys involved in it were talking about it in a little bit. Jimmy got paranoid, and his idea was, hey, let me eliminate everybody that was involved that could finger me. As a result, nobody ever did finger him, but Jimmy did go to jail. He actually died in jail. He got a big sentence. I think he got 40 years or maybe longer than that. I don't know. Paulie Vario, based upon Henry Hill's testimony, also went to prison and died in prison. So that was the aftermath of everything. But it was tremendous heist, the biggest in history up till that time. And again, I just am emphasizing the level of sophistication of guys in that life. And look, when I planned that whole gas thing with Larry Iorizzo, it was very sophisticated. We had to really outthink the government. We had to outplan the government. We had to outrun the government in their investigative techniques to try to come after us. Criminals have, you know, good minds when it comes to things like that. That's why I talked about identity theft, man. I'm telling you, if you protect yourself, trust me, because you're probably already a victim, you don't even know it, but protect yourself. Anyway, that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. And how do I always leave you? I leave you the same way. Be safe, be healthy, God bless you, and I do mean that. And yes, I'll see you next time.